Okay, that's a lot better. So this lens is what's known as a prime lens, just as you see on the camera itself as well. Right there, I have a 16 millimeter lens, and this one is a 35 millimeter lens. Now, what makes a prime lens? A prime lens is a lens that does not zoom, just as let me get it. All right, just as this lens. This lens obviously zooms in and out whenever you're going to be taking a photo or a video. This is a zoom lens, this is a prime lens, and then also when you have a prime lens, for the most part, they're going to have a lower aperture. This one is a f1.8, and the one I have on there is a 16 millimeter f2.8. This lens is a variable aperture, meaning it starts at a 4 and it goes up to a 6.3. Now, if you're a beginner content creator, I know how difficult, or I guess how stressful it can be not knowing exactly what lens to go with. So I'm going to be explaining why I think that going with prime lenses is a lot better option, especially if you're a beginner and you're barely starting out, you're not really sure what you want to do. Going for a prime lens might be the easier way to go. Now, of course, there is always the option of buying a camera with a kit lens, but the problem with going with the kit lens is that the quality is usually not going to be that great, especially if you don't have a lot of other gear, such as me. I'm recording indoors, so I don't really have that great of light, and the aperture being a little bit larger, starting at a 4, isn't going to be really good for taking indoor video or indoor photos. So usually if you don't have all the extra gear, these lenses might not give you the best quality, and it's not going to make it look like those other photographers or other people that take photos on Instagram or make YouTube videos as well, which that's going to be one of the big benefits of going with a prime lens is you get a lower aperture. And a lot of the times these prime lenses take way better quality photos because of that lower aperture, as well as having a lot more things, or I guess being really good at doing one single thing and at that single focus point. This kind of becomes a talk of this is going to be a jack of all trades and knows a lot of different things that it can do, whereas this one does only one simple thing. It does one focal length, but it's really good at that focal length. Now, another thing to consider is going to be price, and a kit lens will come with the camera and usually be anywhere from $200 to $300, and it comes with the camera, whereas this one is going to be a little more expensive. This is kind of mid-tier. This exact 35 millimeter RF lens was actually $500. And then the one I have on there is a Canon RF 16 millimeters, and that one was $300. So combined between this prime lens and that prime lens, the total was $800, and they work for everything I do. Now, if you look at the price of a zoom lens, one of Canon's RF lenses that does anywhere between 15 and 35, which I have the opposite size of both of those, that lens is going to cost $2,300, which is going to be a lot more expensive than getting the two combined. And like I said, these two do everything I needed to do. Now, if you are a beginner, you probably already have an idea of what you want to do with your camera, whether that's photo or video, and you kind of already know what different section, or I guess what different kinds of videos you want to take. If you're going to be a vlogger and you're going to be taking a lot of handheld video, I do recommend that you go with a wider lens, such as a 16 millimeter lens. Anywhere around that focal length, it's really great for whenever you hold it out. If you see here, this camera lens is actually just about an arm's length away. It is pretty wide. It's great for holding it out, and then you can go ahead and get kind of a little bit of separation from the background, and then you also do get a lot more from the back. Now, if you're going to be more of a photographer and you're going to be taking a lot of more macro photography or product photography, I recommend that you do go with a little bit tighter lens. This is a 35 millimeter. There's a one called the Nifty 50. It's a 50 millimeter lens. It's usually rather cheap, and it's also really great at taking close-ups and taking portrait photography. It has a lower aperture, meaning you do get that separation, the blurry background, just like you see in all the portraits, as well as all the product photography. Now, that was the road I took. I took a lot of photos, so I went with this lens first, and I used this for the past year, and I was able to get everything done. I was taking video, I was doing photos, any type of photos too. It wasn't just product photography, it wasn't just portraits. I went out, I took landscape photos. I really could take anything with this 35 millimeter lens. Now, only recently I upgraded to that because I switched up my studio and I wanted a lens that I can have set up all the time. And my studio is pretty small. I think it's only like 40 square feet. So because it was pretty small, I needed a wider lens to be able to keep it close, not really need to be moving it too far back, and then it does catch everything that I have in here. Now, that is one thing to think about, is that because these are prime lenses, you can't really do any type of zoom Like I mentioned, now that I wanted to switch up kind of the type of videos I was making, I had to go out and buy a different lens rather than just having one. But also, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of price, as you're going down the road, hopefully if you can use one for a year and you grow your business, you start making more money with one single prime lens, you'll be able to afford a zoom lens that also does everything and has different focal lengths. Or worst comes to worst, you also can afford another lens that's also going to be rather on the mid-range side rather than being a cheap lens that really will be zoom but won't really do much good. But that is why I think beginner content creators should be using prime lenses. They can save a lot of money and they also can get a lot better quality photo and video out of a lens. But let me know down in the comments, what do you think of this? Are you someone that's using prime lenses or are you someone that's more of a fan of zoom lenses? Thank you for watching and I will catch you guys on the next one.